Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Jenna, and today's video we are going to be looking at old school beauty YouTube favorites that I still use. So I'm going to go through all the categories of makeup and talk about some old school beauty YouTube favorites. And what I mean by that is makeup products that back in the beginning days of beauty YouTube were really popular. They were all the rage. They were the thing everybody was reviewing, everybody was giving positive reviews on, and every makeup lover had to have. Now, most of these I think are going to be true old school. Some are going to be a little bit more, mid, 2010s, but I did my best. And there are quite a few, but there were some categories that was a little harder. And I'll let you know which ones those are as we go along. Most of them I'm wearing on my face today. I will also let you know as I'm going along which ones I'm wearing and any that I may not have used today in my makeup look. So I'm going to start off with primer, face primer. Now the one I still use is Too Faced Hangover RX Replenishing Primer. And that is still sold. It goes for $35. And that was a really big one when primers first came out. It was the first like moisturizing primer that I remember that got big on YouTube. Now, to be fair, the one I'm using currently is not the original one. It is the Hangover RX Good to Go SPF 25 moisturizer. It's in a blue packaging instead of the pink packaging that the original replenishing primer goes in. So this isn't even technically labeled a primer. This is a moisturizer, but I use it as that nowadays. This is also $35. I find I like that one better now because of the SPF in it. As I age, I need as much moisturization as I can in order for my makeup to sit well on my skin. So I did upgrade to that version rather than the original, but I would still use the original, but because this one's available, I choose to go with that one, at least currently. I did not use the Hangover RX moisturizing primer today, honestly, because I forgot, not because I didn't want to. I forgot, my bad. And for setting spray, I use an oldie but a goodie, the ever popular, ever famous MAC Fix Plus. Back then, this is like the only one that existed. So of course it got all of the attention because there wasn't really much else out there to compete with it. But it still holds up. It doesn't set the makeup for long periods of time the way some setting sprays do now, but it does help blend the makeup, moisturize the makeup, make it look less makeup-y on your face. So it still holds up, and this goes for $30 for a 3.4 fluid ounce bottle. I did use the MAC Fix Plus to set my makeup when I was done today. And just a heads up, I didn't mean for this video to be so MAC heavy, but it's going to be. Because for those of you who don't know, MAC was the shit back then. In the early 2010s, MAC was the brand you went to for everything. It was the best in almost everything back then. That's not the case now, but they still have a lot of really good products that I really like to use, and they're still a great brand, but everybody else has stepped up their game, so they've got a lot more competition than they did back then. Okay, and I have two for the eye primer category. The first one is the ever popular, ever old school MAC Pro Longwear Paint Pot. And this was like one of the only primers back then as well. I've found that this is like the one thing that's continued to work for me throughout the years. I will be honest, just recently in the last couple of months, I found that it's starting to get a little creasy on me, but that might have been because of the summer, and this is an older one. I might need to upgrade to a fresh one, but I've been using this ever since it became popular, and it hasn't really done me wrong. I often use the color Painterly or sometimes Soft Ochre. Again, those were the two colors that everybody used. Now, the primer that I've been using recently, because the paint pot has been starting to crease on me, is another old school one that I just went back to. I stopped using this one years ago because this started getting creasy on me. I don't know what changed. I mean, sometimes our skin changes as we get older, different seasons, different hormones, what's going on in our lives, our skin's texture changes. So I guess right now my eyelids are more compatible with this versus the Paint Pot. But this is the Urban Decay eyeshadow primer potion. Like, aside from the Paint Pot, this was the first big eyeshadow primer that came out on the market. And for me, it still works wonders. A full size goes for $24 and a mini goes for $13. This is still great. I recommend, if you haven't tried it in a long time or you haven't tried it ever, give it a shot. You could try the mini for $13, see if it works for you, but I think it works really good. There's a lot of primers that I find just crease the hell on me, and it really bothers me. Even the one that was really hyped up on YouTube, the P. Louise one, I went and ordered that because everybody was talking about how great it was, and it just did not do the trick. It creased so bad, and I tried it over and over, and I couldn't get it to work. It just wasn't compatible with my skin. And of the two primers today, I used the Urban Decay one. Like I said, that's been working better for me as of late, for whatever reason. Okay, I also have two foundation old school options that I do use from time to time. And the first one, again, is MAC, and that's the Studio Fix Fluid Foundation. Again, this was the foundation to have. This was the go-to. And it still is for me. It rarely ever fails me. Every once in a blue, it'll get a little cakey, it will break up a little bit, but I also think that depends on where my skin is at and what I'm using with it. And this foundation goes for $35, and I wear the color NC10. And the other super popular old school foundation that I do still wear from time to time is the IT Cosmetics CC Cream Plus Illumination. This one in the pink bottle, the one that has a little bit of a sheen to it. I used to wear light, and it was definitely too dark and a little too gray on me, but I wore the crap out of it anyway because it was so beautiful. And now I wear the shade Fair, which is better. It's still a little too dark, but it's better. The only thing bad about this foundation is their shade range is not great. I mean, a lot of their shades are a little more neutral, so they can be a little more flexible, but in this day and age, they really need to expand their shade range. Talking to you, IT Cosmetics, get your shit together, because it's 2021, and the IT Cosmetics foundation goes for $39. I'm actually wearing the IT Cosmetics one today, and the color is still a little off. I noticed it again today. It's still bothersome. I need to figure it out because I really like it, but I don't use it all the time because of that reason. All right, I really didn't have anything for the concealer because concealer is my hardest makeup product to find something that works for me, especially now. As I get a little older, my under eyes have always been creasy because that's just, you know, the facial proportions of my face, the mechanics of my face. They've always had a little crease in them. But as I've gotten older, those creases have gotten deeper, and my under eyes have gotten drier and a little more crepey. So concealer is really hard for me to find something that works. So almost nothing from old school YouTube works for me anymore because it makes my skin either dry or it sits in my creases way too much. It doesn't work for me. The closest thing I have is I just started trying the Shape Tape Ultra Creamy Concealer, because I used to be a huge Shape Tape girl, but I had to stop using it for those exact reasons I just listed. Shape Tape was a huge offender of all of those aging things that get harder with concealer. So I wanted to try the Ultra Creamy to see if it was a little better. I got the mini, as you can see, because I wasn't sure it was going to work. So far, it's doing pretty good. It's not the best, but I'm giving it a wear, I'm giving it a try, I'm seeing how it's doing. It's doable, it's passable, but it's not my favorite. So this is the closest thing I have. And I wear the shade 8B Porcelain Beige, and the full size of that goes for $29. I believe the mini was $10. And then for setting powders, I also have two options, and one of them is the queen of setting powders for the longest time, the Laura Mercier Translucent Setting Powder. I got the mini here. I used to use this nonstop. I would go through the big ones several times a year. But I haven't been setting my face as much lately. So setting powder is not a product that I've been using as often. I set my under eyes and like in my T-zone and around my mouth and my chin a little bit. It's not magic the way I used to think it was, because there are a lot more setting powders out there that are great, but it's still a good setting powder. And the mini goes for $23 and a full size is $39. And the other option that I still wear frequently is the Lancome Absolute Radiant Smoothing Powder. This one, it's the one that has like a little bit of a sheen to it. It's very minimal, but it's nice. I appreciate it if you're looking for a more radiant, dewy finish. It's not shimmery like a highlighter. The shimmer that you're seeing is not this. It's the highlighter that I'm wearing, which I'll go over. But it does just enough so that if you're not going to be wearing highlighter especially, it gives you just a little glow. And I use the color Absolute Pearl. Now this is expensive. I don't know that I will repurchase this when I run out of this. This goes for $62. So do I need to be spending another $62 for something that I don't use very often? Probably not. And in case you guys don't remember, this was made famous, I believe, by Miss Jaclyn Hill herself. She used to rave that this was one of the keys to her glowy, beautiful skin look. And I'm wearing the Absolute setting powder on my face today. Okay, now for blush, I think I have the most options for blush. Blush holds up, and a lot of people have been making good blush for years, and I still use a lot of them. One of the first ones that I still use is the Clinique Cheek Pop blushes. These are great. They have a lot of cool colors. It's easy. They're not too big. They're good to travel with. This is in Peach Pop and this is in Pansy Pop. This is my go-to if I want a more purple cheek. And this is a great, like, really peachy, corally shade. Can't go wrong. And these go for $26.50. And then I'm including this MAC product. Now this specific one is discontinued. And I faltered over whether or not to include it because of that reason. It's the MAC Mineralized Skin Finish, and this is in the shade Semi Precious Rose Quartz. It's the one that has like a little bit of a highlighty, bronzy center and a very shimmery, peachy coral outer center where the blush is. And this does a really nice color. It's a really nice illumination. You can use just this without a highlighter, and it's perfect. It's really beautiful. I love it. I wish they still made this shade. Fortunately, they don't. I don't know if they have anything similar. Now, the MAC Mineralized Skin Finishes still do exist, just not this shade, and they go for $37. And then I also have the classic NARS Orgasm blush. Like this, I think, was the it blush shade. Like, no doubt about it, the #1 blush shade ever talked about on YouTube, I still think to this day. It's a beautiful pinky blush with like a goldy shimmery shift to it. It was like the first of its kind to do that, and it's great. It still lives up. I would still suggest getting this, and the full size goes for $30. And then one other one is the Too Faced Sweethearts Perfect Flush Blush in the shade Sparkling Bellini. I love this one. I was honestly pulled in by the cute packaging and how pretty the product is on the inside. It's 3 different shades. There's a very shimmery light peach, a medium peachy pink, and then a very pink shade down here. And they're all shimmery. The 2 outer ones are more like glittery shimmery, and the middle one's like a mid shimmer. I tend to stick to the 2 peachy shades up at the top, but sometimes I swirl my brush in the whole thing and use the whole thing. This is beautiful. It's still great. This is the one I have on my face today. It gives like a nice warm flush to your face, a warm peachy flush to your face. It gives it a lot of depth and color. I really like it. And this still sells today for $30. I can't talk about old school highlighter favorites without talking about Becca. Becca was the it girl. They were doing something that other highlighters were not doing. They really just took things to another level, and it really put Becca on the map. It's so sad that they're going out of business because it changed the way makeup was done with highlighters. Like, I really think they inspired and fed the highlighter trend because these were so magical. And these are called the Shimmering Skin Perfectors. I have a mini one and a full size one. I used to have the very popular shade, the one that really started this whole thing off, Champagne Pop, but I dropped it and it broke, and I tried to repress it, but it kept breaking, so I threw it out. I may just have to go out and buy another one before Becca goes out of business completely. And that was another one prompted by Jaclyn Hill. She did her thing back then, got us all buying stuff. But the two that I still have are Prosecco Pop. It's a little goldy for me. And then the mini is in the shade Opal, which is another really popular shade. Oh, no. It just fell out when I held it up. Oh my god, guys. And it shattered into pieces. It didn't even like fall out in one pan. I can't save it. Ah. It's destroyed. Covered in highlighter. Didn't this happen to me in the last video? Well, I guess I'm also buying a new Opal. Well, the full sizes go for $38, the minis go for $22. Anyway, I'm actually wearing a mix of the two because they're actually both a little dark for me. The Opal, probably couldn't tell because it fell apart before anybody could take a look at it. It has a little bit of like a pink grayish shift to it, but there's like a little bit of a darkness to it, which is kind of cool. And this one is a little bit goldy for me. I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted because I'm upset about what just happened. The other highlighter that I still use, which is not technically a highlighter, is the MAC iridescent powder in the shade Silver Dusk. Now, before highlighters became a thing, before highlighters were highlighters, this was what I used, okay? And I would put it on my cheeks, but sometimes I would dust it all over my whole entire face, not as a setting powder, but just because I loved the sparkly sheen it gave me. It's a little bit pinky. You probably can't tell it from there. It's a little bit pinky. Like, this was the product that defined me back then. Especially if it was in the sunlight, you see sparkles all over my face. Some of my friends actually called me Twilight because they said I look like a vampire with the way my face glittered in the sunlight. Because, yeah, well, you get it. But I love that product. They discontinued it, but it actually has been brought back, and I was reading up, apparently they've discontinued it multiple times and brought it back multiple times. You can still get it, and it's $30. For bronzer and contour, I just have one product. I don't tend to bronze my face because I'm so pale, bronzing can sometimes look a little weird on me. So I do contour. That bronzing and contour is kind of one step, and I use the Kevin Aquan sculpting powder in the shade Medium. This was the only contouring powder back then. I don't remember hearing about contour before I heard about this product. That's the powder that you can get, a single of this, and that's the one it is. But yeah, honestly, I don't remember ever hearing about contour before I heard about this product. And I bought it, and it still works great for me. It's a great shade. It's neutral to cool. It's not too warm. It doesn't look too gray on me. It still does the trick, honestly. And a full-size one of these, not the duo, is $44. Okay, next up for brows. I didn't do my brows for a long time, so it wasn't until closer to the mid-2010s that I started doing brows. But I still use the Benefit Gimme Brow Tinted Brow Gel. I actually didn't use this back then. It's something that I've just started using recently, so I don't know how much this counts, but it was the only one that I had that I still really use. I use the shade 3. It does a good job. It's not too pigmented. It's just the right amount of pigmentation. It's easy to work with. It's not too stiff. And it fills in the brows just enough. I do also use another product to define my tails a little bit, but other than that, this is my go-to product. And the full size is 24, the mini is 14. And I did use the Gimme Brown in my brows today. Okay, I only have one lipstick product, MAC lipsticks. Again, these were the lipsticks to have. If you look at old school beauty YouTube videos, a lot of them were my MAC lipstick collection. You would see people have these massive lipstick holders, this big, full of these lipsticks, because these were the only lipstick that was pigmented and stayed well and had different sheens. Another one that I still use, I just couldn't find it, is Velvet Teddy. That was a very popular one. Blankety, this one here, the nudie one, is the amplified finish. Chili, the red one, is the matte finish. And Snob, the very pink, bluish pink one, which was all the rage, that is in the satin finish. Velvet Teddy is also a matte, and that is a little bit more of like a brownie nude, a little darker than Blankety. And if you couldn't tell by looking at my lips, I am wearing Snob today. That was in the mid 2010s. This was like my go-to shade. And it's actually pretty 2000s, but there was a time in the early 2010s where this came back and I thought it was the best. For gloss, I have the Buxom Full On Lip Cream. Again, they're a little minty, a little cooling, a little plumping. This is in the very popular shade White Russian. It's a very light pink. It gives just a little bit of sheen. It's mostly clear, but it's nice. Not too sticky. The full size goes for $21, and I am wearing it on my lips today. Now for eyeliner, I'm not a devoted eyeliner person. I haven't found one line eyeliner where I'm like, this is the one, I'm gonna stick with it. This is absolutely perfect. And for a lot of reasons. My favorite applicator, the one that goes on the easiest, is the easiest for me to use. It's so smooth. It's so flexible. I can do a wing so easily with this without making a mistake. This is the Clinique Pretty Easy Liquid Liner Pen. It's perfect for that. Now, what's not great about it is that it's not as long wearing as I want it to be. It doesn't stay put the way I want it to be. It does get a little smudgy at some point, which lets me down. So I do use this sometimes. I am currently wearing it right now. It's the easiest one in the world for me. It just is not my favorite formula, and that frustrates me. And the full size of the Pretty Easy liner is $23. Another one that I use from time to time is the Kat Von D Tattoo Liner, now KVD, but when it was big back then, it was Kat Von D, in the shade Trooper. I don't think there's anything that really needs to be said about this. Everybody knows that this was the go-to. It is still really good. You know, I don't think it outshines the liners we have today. I think there are better ones, but you really can't go wrong either. And the mini of this is $12, the full size is $21. Same with liner. I don't have any mascaras that I'm devoted to. I'm always trying new mascaras. There's like 2 or 3 that I can say I really, really liked and I would go buy again, but it wasn't a big enough difference for me to not use what I have. I get a ton of these liners in my subscription boxes or like free gift with purchase, and I'm still going through them. I have so many. But one that I will go back to from time to time is the Too Faced Better Than Sex. This was, again, one of the first really big high-end mascaras that everybody loved. This is the waterproof one, and that's the only reason why I have this one currently, was because I needed a waterproof one. I forget for what. So I did go for this one because I knew it was reliable. And a full size of this goes for $27, and the mini is $16 in both formulas, the regular and the waterproof. As for lip liner, I'm not a lip liner girl, but I do have a couple, and again, I'm getting to be a broken record, but the MAC lip liners are the ones that I have the most of and that I still tend to use. They do a really good job. They're creamy enough without being super smudgy. They mostly stay in place, but they're not too stiff. They have a lot of colors. I have the shades Boldly Bare, Hip and Happy is the pink one, and that's the one I'm wearing today with Snob. I have Soar, which is a little bit more of like a berry color, a light berry, and Nice and Spicy, which is like a nice brown color. And the lip liners go for $19. Now, last but not least, I have eyeshadow. I'll be honest, there's not a lot of really old school eyeshadows that I still use because so many brands, again, have stepped up the quality of their shadows that they've gotten better than what was top of the line back then. Now for single shadows, there is one single shadow that I do still wear, and that is MAC in the shade Nylon. It is like an off-white shimmer, And I still use this a ton for inner corner and brow bone highlight, which I have done so today, especially if I have a palette that doesn't have a light shade that would work for those. This is the one I grabbed for. And the MAC single shadows go for $19. I did not have a palette that I still use very regularly or even semi-regularly from the old school days, but I did still have two of the OG makeup palettes, the Urban Decay, Original Naked, and Naked 3. I still have them. They are so old. They're so disgusting. I really should let them go, but you can see very well loved. This shadows have definitely turned a little bit. This was pretty well loved too. This is in a little bit better condition because it's a little bit newer. These are the OG palettes on YouTube that went viral. And I still have them, and I've kept them for that reason because it's just sentimental. And it reminds me of when I first started to really love makeup. But if I use these once a year, that's being generous, and I probably shouldn't use them at all, especially the Naked one, because they're really freaking disgusting. Like, unsanitary, guys, but I can't let go. Now the Naked no longer exists in this form. The Naked Reloaded, the revamped version, is out there for $45, and the Naked 3 still is for sale, and it's $64. Now the only palette that I could say that maybe is kind of old school YouTube that I do still use from time to time is Anastasia Beverly Hills Modern Renaissance. This is definitely more recent, I would say mid-2000s, but this was one of the biggest palettes from that time. I wouldn't say I use it a lot, but I do use it from time to time. It is still a great palette. It is really beautiful, and it is still in my rotation. This palette goes for $45. And I think that's it, guys. That is my full face of old school beauty YouTube favorites that I still use, and I still really like, and that I would still... most of them still recommend, and some of them are still my ride or dies. Like the MAC Paint Pot is my ride or die, and now back to the Urban Decay Primer Potion. The Benefit Gimme Brow is my ride or die brow product. The MAC Studio Fix Fluid and the It CC Cream are pretty ride or die for me. MAC Cosmetics Single Shadow in Nylon, again, can't go wrong. And all the blushes, I really don't know that there's anything in recent years that I've liked as much. Let me know what you think. Do you still use any of these products? Are any of these your go-to products still? Are you looking at me like I am so old and behind the times, which I am old, but I'm trying not to be behind the times. Are you looking at me and rolling your eyes and saying, ugh, what a millennial, she's so not cool? If you are, that's okay. Let me know down below. And if you have other products that you recommend that you think are better than the ones that I mentioned, put them in the comments below, and maybe I'll try them out, and maybe I'll decide that you're right. If you liked this video, please give it a like, think about leaving a comment, and I hope you'll consider subscribing. I would really love to have you here. If not, that's okay. I'm just glad you came by for a visit, and I hope I see you again in the future. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.